Well, today, in my views from Tumortown, we're going to talk a little bit more again about radio. Um, Granted, when I was a kid, AM radio was pretty much the deal. You know, all your AM stations, pop radio was big everywhere. And if you had a transistor radio, you listened to AM radio. There was no question about it. Now, my parents, as I've said before, were both in television and radio. So radio was something that came naturally for me. I, gra- I gravitated to it and I loved it. So my dad, as I've said before, had his little, thing with Heathkits and building little boxes of electronics. So my dad, when I was in elementary school, put together a little recording setup for me. It was a little reel-to-reel recorder with a record player, a microphone, and a little audio mixer. So I could actually, play a record, talk over the record, you know, talk while I took that record off, queued up another one, let it go, like I was a DJ on a radio show. And my mother, when she had to work at night, would take me down to the station, and I would get to play on the console that nobody was using, and the main DJ who was on at night would take time to come over and show me how things worked, set me up, so, after a while I could go in there and I could fly that room all by myself. I didn't need anybody. I knew how to run that board. That was not a problem. But the thing about going with my mom is I would go to the teletype machines and I would take a pile of trash out of the trash bin and take it home and rip it up. So I would have weather, sports, international news, financial news, local news, you name it, on this pegboard. So then when I really was, wanted to do something by myself in my room, I could take stuff down and I could do my own news report with real teletype stuff that I'm reading, you know. It made it more real, right? More active. And I did this for years in my room. It was it was just a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. And it got to a point where I was, so into it that I actually went out and got a third class radio operator's permit, which I was probably, I can't say I was the youngest person, but I was one of the youngest, I'm sure, at the time to actually have one. And that basically allowed you to manipulate the controls on a radio transmitter. You knew, you basically had gone to school enough, taken, enough time to read and learn the basics of radio transmission, so that you could actually sit there and do the bare minimum necessary for someone to operate a radio station by themselves at any time. I could adjust the frequency, I could adjust the power output, I could do all that. So that was kind of cool. And, that was handy down the line. It was just an interesting thing to kind of throw out there. But as time went by, that kind of burgeoned into the radio that I did, obviously, in college. And of course, once I got into middle school and then high school, I began to get better equipment, better mixer, better microphone, all this sort of stuff. And I began to play around by doing things that were far more elaborate than just like a little radio show. I would do comedy sketches, I would do interviews, I would do all sorts of things just to occupy time. We would sit in my room, myself and Tom, and we would drink beer, eat pretzels, smoke pot, and create crazy crap on the recordings. I mean, we did, and it was fun, and that set up the stage for a lot of what I did later on in the radio program in college. It also gave me the opportunity to get a job during one summer at a radio station. It was a beautiful music station. That was going to be changing format. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The cancer's got me. And I'm sorry. And it was going to change to, I believe, an all news network format. So at the end of the summer, the manager gave me my last night gave me the opportunity to do what they did on WKRP, you know, when they finally said, yes, we're going to go rock and roll. And if you remember, Dr. Johnny Fever scratched across the disc and then went right into some heavy rock and roll. I got to do that for real on that radio station that night. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the heck out of that. I also, because of it, you know, got to do voiceover work in radio for TV commercials and other sorts of things. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience that, you know, gave me skills and insights that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So, you know, I can't thank my dad enough for, you know, setting that radio station up in my room way back when I was a little kid, encouraging me to do the stuff. You know, I mean, I would chase all the high school football games and run to the phone to call the radio station so they would put my voice on air. Hey, the score here, blah, 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 you know. Anything to get on air, right? But radio was great, and I still love, you know, real radio today, even though it doesn't really exist, which is a shame. But, you know, in those days it was something, and you could really have some fun and do some interesting things with radio back in the day, and I really miss it, and I enjoyed those times. So that was me and my radio delt, my radio time in the lovely history of my life. Peace, everybody. Hang 10.